I felt that I should tell my story again. Post pandemic, I was back then, people were dreading to come into public gatherings like this. I somehow never like any fear. Even myself, if anything bothers me, I go and I stand because fear looks real, but it's not true. But it manipulates our brain. So I thought, no, no, humans have seen so many pandemics. We survived and we are going to survive. So this is not right, was the reason, one partial reason. And AI back then started exploding. Economy was bad. Every time I read a news, I'm subscribed to GeekWire. So every time I see that this company is letting go this number, thousands of people, it used to hurt my tummy. Like those are not numbers, there are families behind. High school going kids are there, college kids are there, family gets affected. And also students, the other set, they are graduating. The gap, when I still remember when I got my first job, it was so difficult because it's catch 22. If you don't have experience, people don't give you a job, but if you won't get experience until you get your job, how do you solve this? So I thought, in-person meetings like this will give an opportunity for students to meet with their mentors or potential employers, or understanding and hearing to experienced people how they solve problem. Similarly, somebody who lost jobs, for them they can't afford to go to some reinvent or ignite where they have to pay some $5,000. So rather want to bring here, and sometimes coming out. I tell you my personal experience. Recently I went to 24-hour fitness. I ran into this, and he said, I know you, you're Padma, right? You run that Seattle data security. I said, yes, it's me. Then he said, Padma, thank you so much. Not, I lost my job and I found one. Not because I came to your community, but coming here, brought that positiveness. Please keep doing this. This is what he said to me. So those kind of things, fills. And the one other reason, of course, my father. My father was a trade union lawyer round the clock, no kidding. He used to, take poorest of the poor people cases. And his ROI, living in America, we always think of ROI as EBITDAs. We are very, for him, the ROI is just helping others, solving other people problems. There was no other math. That used to, that inspired me. As just we two daughters, we did really well. He lived a very rich life. There is no end for this madness, was also one of the reason for starting Seattle Data and Security. Today, we are 15,000 members. Um, Chitra, can you say, yeah. So anyway, our vision mission I already shared with you guys. I want to keep on purpose. I want to keep a $0, so people don't think twice to come and attend this. Was the mission vision, but that is 13K. But I think that also increased now. There are 15,000 members, and the one other, we are doing many things. First thing, we make it a point. We are doing every month one event. Putting these events is not easy, I'm telling you. So we need volunteers, we need good word, we need help from each of you. So how that help is in a very tiny form. When you see our post, please repost it. It will only take a minute, or comment on top of it. Yes, this is a sincere community, here doing in our city. So anyway, so that's an ask. Now, we are doing every month events. We recently concluded one online hackathon. And what are the next coming month activities and all? I think Chitra or somebody is going to speak. So I don't want to ruin that and again repeat. But um, there are certain things that I'm doing differently. I'm making this as an innovation hub now. It's not just a place where people come, meet, and go. How am I doing this? I'm talking to universities. We are signing MOUs with them. And I am going to the government, like CISOs, and I'm talking to Seattle CISO, Bellevue here, and other Dallas, Atlanta. And then I'm also talking to the security industry companies like Sentinel One or CrowdStrike, those kind of companies, and Microsoft. So I'm bringing the industry, I'm bringing the universities, and then I'm bringing the Gov, and we are planning to build AI and cyber clinics. So this way, students get an opportunity to solve certain problems, then you can. This is just I'm still in the beginning of the talk. That's where the direction that I'm now carving, and I'm also working with Indian government in building their AI workforce. So continuously, every day I wake up and every day I think like today how I can help and do and make my life meaningful in this whole thing. I'm not helping anyone. I'm helping myself. When I look back 10 years from now, we all know that a decade flies like this. So I want to make my life purposeful life. That's all that I'm trying here. So I think I'm going to invite Chitra, who is going to talk more about these are my backbones. But they're real volunteers. They're really giving their time, and I'm very demanding. they they really honor it. If anything is seamless here, it's because of these young people. So that's also another thing that I'm trying is giving the leadership opportunities to them. There's so much learning in conducting these events. Also, they have so much knowledge that they pick up. So with that said, I'll give it to Chitra.
Thank you, Padma. I see a lot of people in here today, but the energy, I don't feel the energy yet. Can we have a round of thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here today, taking out some time and seen all of you networking out there where every person wants to go out there, contribute to the community, put yourself, help somebody and share that knowledge. We all believe in sharing and thriving together. And that's why we want to dedicate such specific time and not let anybody inside so that you can all talk to each other and actually make a difference. Like Padma was mentioning, a small help that we require from all of you is please just follow us on LinkedIn, and any update, that's the first place we go put up. And um, that also where you could repost, share it with your network, so that like I can see maybe 95% people here today who are new. That's just how all of our previous members are sharing, and that you're coming to know about this. So we would love for you to do that so that we can see more and more members joining in here for us to go communicate and network with 15,000 plus people from here on. If you've missed any previous events, or if you're looking to even go back and listen to today's recordings, we are up on YouTube too. It's going on live at the moment. So right after the event, you can go check it back there. So any knowledge from slides that you might have missed, you can grab it from there. So if you want to take a picture of this slide, please do, and you can refer to it later. About today's event, we have our speakers here today, Ajay and Ran. Um, Welcome in. Thank you so much for taking out time and presenting to the audience today. Um, Again, we are going to have Ajay go first. Ajay, right after, yeah, please walk in. Can we have a round of applause for Ajay too, please? Um, We are also conducting many big day-long events in Dallas and Atlanta that I would like Akshar to elaborate on, please. Over to you, Akshar.
Hello, welcome, and thank you for taking the time out on this beautiful sunny day. I know we get very less of this in Seattle. Um, she's already spoken. You're already here at our monthly event, but apart from Seattle, we have our presence right now in Dallas and Atlanta, where we do, and we already did this tour here in Seattle. We are doing one on August 28th at UT Dallas. It's a day long event. The volunteers you see here are very less. The core group there is putting in efforts. I don't have words to say. So it's a day long sessions. We have the keynote by Cisco. We have Microsoft, Sentinel One, Women in Tech panel. So there are a lot of fun things that are happening. And we'll be doing more of those tours in the coming months, even in Seattle. So following us on LinkedIn, getting the updates is what will get to you to the events. And the Atlanta one is going to be on November 6th. And I'll have Padma elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yeah, no, very similar. Like in Atlanta, we are inviting In Seattle, Microsoft keynote, Dallas, Cisco keynote, and then I think in Atlanta we are having CrowdStrike. So we are giving, we are brand agnostic. So we have want all flavors, all leaders to come and talk. And uh, who next? Yeah, this is
Our next monthly event is going to be right here at the same place at the same time. Just the day is going to be different. It's going to be September 10th. And we are also coming up with a new series called Women Who Build AI, the announcement of which will come up soon. That is to encourage all women in technology. We want to empower them. It's going to be an online, hybrid, in person event, all of that which we are planning. So keep stay tuned and we'll post our updates over there. And next, I'm going to give it to Funny.
Thank you. Yeah, hi everyone. Very good evening. So, I'll be going to explain about the hackathons that we have conducted and the hackathons we are going to conduct. So, last July 30, we conducted an online hackathon. We got participants from around the world. Actually, we didn't expect that, but most of them were students and they did a spectacular job. And these are the winners that we got. We got three teams, a few of them from uh, Seattle and few of them from California and I think EST time zone. Thank you so much for them for joining, and it was a great presentation, and you should allow it. I would like to have a great round of applause for them as well. So, coming to the next hackathon that we are conducting on October, it would be a hybrid hackathon. So this time, instead of focusing on minute problems, we are going for something big, the AI token economics. I think you are aware of this problem in the industry right now, right? Yeah, exactly. So we are trying to bring big heads together and work on this particular problem to get some sort of solution that could change and add value to the community and to the entire world if that actually helps. So that event is hybrid. So this hackathon will be conducted for 2 weeks long, completely straight, and then the end session, the finalists will be announced at CTU University on October 3rd. So all those details you can just scan the QR code. You can find all the details on Meetup. And coming up next, so these are the sponsors for our next event that we are conducting in Dallas. And Padma would like to add something on it.
yeah. Every person, we have certain strengths and weaknesses. Our strength is giving. Our strength is putting these kind of programs, inviting you all and doing this seamlessly. We still are, our monthly events, we don't have sponsors. We always look for sponsors. And if any of you, because CrowdStrike, like I said to you, it's not here, but CrowdStrike is sponsoring us. And AD Bailey, iLink Digital, and these companies, of course, Cisco and Microsoft are innovation sponsors. They are, in they're giving speakers and stuff like that. But we are looking for sponsors. Startups can also come, and we are, starting very soon now. Since with all so many, decision makers in our network, and we, slowly companies are reaching out. Good thing about this community is anything we are again reinvesting. We will do many more good things for the community. Number one. Number two, we are 501(c). So 30%, you know, in the end, year end, that can be at the time of taxes. Of course, you guys have to talk to the accountants, but that's another benefit by sponsoring us. So please, we are looking for sponsors. Thank you.
Yeah, so that said, thanks for joining us today once again. And thank you so much for the Bellevue City Hall for sponsoring this spectacular space. And yeah, we'll get started with the speaking session. Chitra?
Is this on the guys? Cool. Thank you. Well, firstly, I would like to thank Padma and team for kind of hosting this event. As it's a big community that has grown. I joined one of the events for hackathon last year, and it was a great experience. So it's great to see the community grow. Um, and thank you for having me, Padma. Um, my name is Ajay, and I'm a senior engineering manager at Pinterest. I own the observability platform at Pinterest. This platform is used internally for all the engineering services that we went out. Um, and today I'm going to talk about InDuty, which is essentially an AI SRE system that we are building at Pinterest. Um, So before I start, I wanted to frame the problem with what's happening with we talk a lot about coding agents and they becoming mainstream, and what that has resulted in is kind of a bottleneck at the tail end of the system, if you will. So we can write code very fast, but there are coding agents, but people are talking about review agents as well. But we know that 70% of the work in engineering and software development is actually in operations and maintaining the system and keeping it healthy, etc. Um, so what has happened is has been a big influx of code being thrown in, and of course, whenever you have code, you would have metrics, traces, events, logs, and increase in that stuff as well. Um, and also just to lay out some context of Pinterest, we mostly use core compute from the cloud vendors, primarily AWS, but we build most of our data systems, pub subsystems, and additional services on our own, either using open source or sort of building our own stuff. There is very less usage of managed services. And the reason for that is Pinterest started somewhere around 2012 timeframe, and these services didn't exist. It's an internet company, so it needed to have an observability platform or an observ system or a key value store, and those things were not so readily available from cloud providers. So we ended up building our observability platform as well, and we call it Stats Board, and you can think of it as an equivalent of CloudWatch or Azure Monitor and those kind of systems. So we ingest a lot of data, logs, traces, metrics, events, etc. And then we vend it out using StatsBoard, which is kind of the system where people can put in their dashboards. We have our own DSL and a metric math system based on Python pandas, where you can write different time series functions and plot the charts and graphs, etc. Um, so a lot of these systems were built in silos. Like people talked about metrics, logs, traces, events separately in the past, before the open telemetry evolution came around. Of course, there's correlation that you can draw from these different signals as well, but there is a dimensionality crisis. And essentially, if you have these systems built in silos without a very good correlation system between them, you have to deal with a lot of disparate signals if you have an issue. You would first go to metrics, then metrics are useful for detection. So once you detect something, log diving is kind of the primary way of troubleshooting issues. But how many of you are engineers over here or have been on call? Okay, quite a few. So I think you guys can relate. Like whenever there is an outage at 2 a.m. in the night, it's a cold start problem to figure out what's going on. Um, so what we are trying to do is kind of adopt both shift left and shift right strategy. Shift left meaning we are trying to standardize our schema and signals in such a way so that it's correlatable from the get-go. And that was kind of observability 2.0, where open telemetry gives you the baggage and context and some additional signals using which you can actually source the data once and then build different views out of it. It could be metrics, it could be traces, etc. But in our system, we are kind of bolting it on and making sure that it works and we can still correlate because we are operating a lot of services and adopting a new system is is not so easy because it's kind of very heavily used product. And once engineers get accustomed to doing things in a certain way, like you write your metric math in a certain pattern, it's very difficult to kind of do it differently. So we are transitioning from manual heuristic triage to agentic self-healing operation. And this is some data around what are the different volume of signals that we collect. So what is 12 million per minute of metric tag combos, 3 million per minute data points. We ingest around 50 terabyte per day of logs and 10 terabyte of request traces. So if you are working in a system where you don't have a very strong correlation ID across all of these, um, it's kind of difficult to debug. So apart from standardizing, we took an approach of using agentic flow to kind of build a system that can correlate things based on um, some additional attributes as well as um, some context graph information, which I'll talk about in a bit. But again, trimming the problem when an alert fires, you have fragmented tools, no shared context. There is manual correlation required. And once you figure out what the issue is, then the question is, how do you troubleshoot us? You need to figure out where is the run book, what is the right run book as well. Um, and on call is more than alerts. Many a times you get support tickets, support requests as well. Like operate the observability platform, and we have our own Slack channel where people come and ask questions, say, how would I do um, this metric math? The language that we use is T-script. So there are questions around T-script as to how would I do that, etc. Um, and apart from that, AI agentic evolution when it came about, we all started building stuff and started using it. So there was a proliferation of a lot of different teams trying to do similar things, which is how do I troubleshoot and alert, etc., and building in parallel. But those were like parallel efforts and fragmented efforts, and we wanted to build a system that entire Pinterest uses. So we standardized on that, which is Spin Duty, which is an autonomous on-call agent. And I think the key insight that I want to draw out here is transforming the raw telemetry signals into context-aware signals is really the key in troubleshooting any issue. And alerts are just symptoms. At the end of the day, you got to get to the root cause of what actually is causing it. And in a microservices world where you have like 5,000 microservices interacting with each other and producing an output, you really have to have a good context-aware signaling system. Another key insight that I had working on this for the last 1 year is evaluation is key in agentic software. And before building anything, I think it's a very good idea to build out a proper rubric and evaluation suite, which is a combination of both online evaluation, which you do, which is kind of a regression shield, like in any agentic system, if you switch around the model and you're using a harness like Deep Agent or such, which is actually doing the planning work, the plan itself would be different depending on the model you're using. So kind of making sure that you have a good regression shield so that you can switch around the models very easily when you're making changes and detecting it is very critical. And then coupling it with some ground truth data and labeling. So basically, in our case, we identified around 7 or 8 individuals who are kind of experts in different domains within Pinterest and are really good at troubleshooting. So we asked them to grade the system so that we can label the findings in a very clean way. The rubric basically contains things like um, did the agent hallucinate? Uh, how many turns did it take to kind of come to the root cause? Did it actually ask you to do the root cause and stop in between, etc.? So it's kind of a 5 scale rubric that we prepared, and we use it actively. So I'll skip the slide. This one is kind of the repeat of the previous one itself. But the 3 things that we focused on was alert and incident response, which is essentially root cause of page incident, which is a classic case. You have pagerduty or you have some sort of a notification system that throws an alert and then you got to root cause it. Um, we also use this system for predictive uh, analytics, which is to say that whenever a change is deployed, that's probably the highest cause of problems or issues in the system. Like if the system is running statically and not changing, then it can have issues only if there is um, external factors like bigger traffic and you don't have the right auto scaling strategy and you can't scale out, etc. Then that can happen as well. But the leading cause of um, alerts and issues in software is also change. So we built a system that does kind of A/B testing using our canary, and then the production system. Initially, it was a kind of bare bones and kind of similar to what Netflix and Google does as well, called Clienta, which use Man-Whitney test to do a very strict A/B testing. But the problem with those approaches is that there is a lot of setup that you have to do. You have to have a canary and a control system that is very strict in terms of equal in number, same kind of traffic, etc. So there's a lot of setup required. So we extended this system to have more anomaly detection and log analytics, etc. as well. So our system kind of um, predicts as to whether if you're making a change, whether it's going to pass or fail, and if we classify it as, hey, you got to pause the deployment, it's going to cause an issue, then we use pin duty to sort of root cause it as well. And we go back and try to figure out, okay, in the last 7 days or this deployment package, what were the commits made and what could be the faulty commit that caused this issue. So then you get to know that, okay, this is the change that caused the issue. Um, and finally, the service health tasks, which is essentially plain language queries, as I was talking about. There are a lot of queries that people post in support channels, but at the same time, um, you as an engineer, you can go and talk to a service as well. Like in many ways, observability systems of future are going to be more dynamic in nature. If you guys are aware of Anthropic artifacts kind of model, where instead of building a static dashboard and thinking things in advance, you have all the signals and you can do those things in a conversational way where it'll start building out the charts and graphs that are of interest to you. Mhm. So overall, our harness is based out of Deep Agent LangChain. As I said, we use a lot of open source software, and LangChain is kind of the open source equivalent of building harnesses. Um, and the very top, we have the coordinator agent, which is PinDuty, and it basically has a router to parse the query that the user is asking and then route it in the right pattern by building the context and sort of go through a model where we have a coordinator worker delegator model. Um, the primary agent then can delegate the tasks to a lot of different sub-agents in the system depending on the query that you have. And this is useful because we want to minimize the number of tool calls as well as the context plot that can happen in the system in agents. So with this architecture, we are able to focus only on things that matter by parsing the query upfront and then trying to plan an execution or the trajectory of the agent using a combination of deterministic and stochastic method, if you will. Um, so then, let's say it's an alert and things come into this system. We have a causal subagent, which uses a knowledge and context graph, which is essentially a topology of our services and how things are laid out. And there are two parts over here, which is we have a core subagents, which is kind of we built out MCP tools, which exposes all the metrics, logs, traces, alerts, and there are like 30 or 40 different tools that we have built over there to query that. But in addition to that, we incorporate skills across different themes and domains. So, for example, if you are troubleshooting a Kubernetes deployment or a Kubernetes system, we have very specific skills for Kubernetes, and then we also map it to a team within Pinterest as to, okay, this is the team that manages it, and these are the people on call, etc. So the second part of this equation is like a team and domain subagent. So depending on the query, we use a combination of our core subagents as well as team and domain subagents to kind of root cause the actual issue. And then once we root cause it, we produce a structured report and then go through the remediation steps. Um, this is an interesting area because um, what we are talking about is you identified a root cause and how much autonomy you want to give to the agent to actually change your production system. So we do have a human in the loop over here to approve the steps, but there is also auditability introduced where most of the actions that you can take in the production system, we route it through an MCP server that is approved to do only certain things at this point. And this is an area of evolution which we are investigating as to how far we can take that, which is you might have heard of sandboxes which can produce code and then you can execute some stuff as well. So strictly speaking, you don't need to be confined with a strict set of tools to do the work because the agents can generate the code and do the fixing as well. But then how do you trust it? So it's kind of a nebulous area which we are trying to navigate, and we haven't formed up our stance on that as to how much autonomy we want to give. So we are taking a very safe path over here, which is to do only allow listed action, and we control that with um, an MCP server, which lists out tools that you can execute. Um, we talked about this coordinator, worker, delegator architecture. I think there are many different patterns. We chose this because it's hierarchical task network. It's very traceable. It's very explainable if as to what you're doing. It also allows us to do some steering in between if the primary agent or the agent that's doing the root causing strays away. So we have some system which is a causal steering agent, which kind of tries to bring the primary agent back on track if it strays away too much. And then we already talked about the domain subagents over here. One of the things that we learned is uh, the advances that have been made in agentic software is good, but the reasoning uh, primarily comes from having a very good context of your system. So, if you have a very good dependency graph or a context map of your services where you can list out, hey, I have a service and it has an endpoint and it uses a decider. Decider is kind of what we call feature flags. Or you can do an experiment, or um, in that case, we have a job which periodically builds this graph. Right now, the frequency is around 15 minutes. So it basically leverages a lot of tracing data that we have, because tracing is a good way to see how things are connected. But then tracing is not the complete answer because many a times we sample traces, etc. as well. Uh, and there are limitations in the tracing architecture at Pinterest that we have where we don't trace certain services. So over here, we use a combination of tracing, but at the same time, we use TCP metrics and RPC metrics that we capture so that we can draw conclusions as to, okay, when this request happened, there was some TCP packets that were exchanged between these two services. So it's kind of a blackboard pattern, I would say. It uses metrics, tracing, as well as code code defined dependency, because you can take a look at the code and try to see the dependency over there as well. But that's kind of just the ontology, which we call knowledge graph, and that's the system of record. Um, to make it actually work, we overlay some dynamic and event driven within the system of agency. Like, in a sense, you need to have a snapshot of the current state of the system. So, yes, we built the ontology, but what's happening in the ontology is what context graph provides to our agent. It's a runtime layer on top of knowledge graph. Um, there are limitations in backend systems as to how far you can query. As you guys are aware, metrics could go into very high cardinality. In that case, if you're querying data for a very long time, it's going to take a very long time to get the data back. So we do some re-aggregation and kind of store it in the context graph as well, which then the system uses. Um, our overall goal is to have around 50% reduction in MTTR. That's the goal. We're not there yet, but that's the target. And with 70% root cause precision rate. Again, we measure this with the evaluation rubric that we created upfront, uh, and then some of the subject matter experts did the labeling so that we can establish a ground truth and continue to build on that. Um, I want to kind of conclude the talk with state of the art and industry landscape of AI agent. Um, so, root cause analysis in general has gone through some iterations. Um, the very first version was, okay, I have a model and I can just use the model to feed it some data signals and try to figure out, what is the problem. Um, it doesn't work very well. Uh, and then the evolution was on topology and statistical analysis as well. So, like things like this company called Causley, Instana, etc. They have a more systematic way of building the topology and the context graph, etc. That I talked about. And then before LLMs came along, um, there were things like Pearson coefficient, correlation coefficient, and as well as page ranking algorithms, etc. So if you have the context graph, knowledge graph, and these kind of algorithms, before the LLMs came around, there were some systems that were trying to do that. The state of the art that's emerging is kind of a combination of both, which is you do need LLM and it's giving us a good harness and a good reasoning logic, planning as well, and whatnot. Um, but having a topology and some sort of a statistical analysis of the data as well as you go along is very useful. And that's what we do as well, as you saw in our previous slide, that we have this causal subagent, which is kind of tries to reason with some more statistical reasoning as well, apart from just LLM agentic reasoning. Um, so there's a quote from our SRE team. They have been using the system for some time. Um, it's still evolving. I wouldn't say it's perfect. We are in very early days and we are still learning. And as you guys are aware, the design patterns are also changing constantly as to how you build these harnesses and agent. But our attempt is to build a harness and then sort of uh, have the right evaluation grounding and continue to evolve the system. Happy to take any questions. Yeah, go ahead. We build our own. So we have our own data systems that we use at Pinterest. We use TiDB and we host it on our own. And then there is a graph library that we have built on top of TiDB, which we call PinGraph. So that's the system we use to save the topology information. Yeah. Very good question. Yeah, observability is very important, and we use LangFuse for getting all the traces. And our observability system had, support for all the metrics, log traces, etc. But tracing is very critical for agent observability. So we kind of started using LangFuse, which is an open source software for agent observability. And for other stuff, we continue to use StatsBoard, which is for metrics, etc. And LangFuse allows you to get all the traces, and then on top of it, we have built an evaluation SDK. Um, so in LangChain ecosystem, you have Langsmith that provides you everything out the box, but we have used open source components to build the agent observability as well as kind of an evaluation hub on top of it. Yeah, so this diagram, yeah, that's right. So this diagram is a bit incomplete. It's not showing the memory layer and kind of the evaluation system as well. So after the investigation is done, we do um, grading of that evaluation, grading of that investigation, and we have a memory system that we have built, which is based on Mem0. It's an open source package, um, and we store session data, session memory, as well as working memory, whatever the agent used, and then we convert that into a long-term memory format as well, which then loops back into the system into the context. So, like for example, if I'm Ajay and I was troubleshooting, let's say, a service, and I used certain steps and it worked, and I did some grading for pin duty. That information we log, and if it was useful information that allowed you to troubleshoot the issue, we remember that and we feed it back into the system. It's not completely implemented, but we have we have bits and pieces of that working. That's a very good question. I guess I'll repeat the question. I think right. So there are two possibilities, which is the agent took some steps, and based on the symptom, it was accurately able to point the root cause, and then it was able to pick up the right run book to fix the issue as well. But it might be the case that the agent did do the job very well. In that case, the path that it took, which is the reasoning trajectory and the tool calls it made, we take a note of that to figure out where the issue was and fix it. And a lot of issues that we have seen in the initial days were related to tool calls, which is like something failing. But yeah, that information also is fed back so that action could be taken on it. Or indeed, if it was a reasoning error, then yeah, we don't incorporate that very well as of now as to how to not do that thing next time. Yeah.
Sorry, I would like to pause. I know we all have such great questions, but can we take more questions towards the end after all the speakers are done? So that we'll have a panel and it will more be like a discussion now. Thank you so much, Ajay.
Cool.
We will have more questions directly to this. I would like to welcome Ran. Uh, Ran, yeah, over to you. I would like you to introduce yourself.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. My name is Ran. So I come from the Salesforce. I work on the product management side. So super excited to be here to share some of the insights that we learn from the industry and also learn from the customer. So actually, my team actually focus on the agent force. How many of you heard about agent force? So that means our marketing dollar is pretty well. Uh, so yeah, essentially, Agentforce is a platform that we enable our customers to build their agents for different use cases, including the internal use case or external use case. So essentially, we're selling the B2B to C business model. So customers can build their own agents either for the customer service, which is the external use case, or they can use Agentforce to build the internal use case, such as the lead generation or supporting the new hire onboarding, etc. So those are very different use cases for agents. So for this session, I would love to share some of the hands-on learnings that we learn from working with our customers and also the customers' pain points when they use our platform. Okay, so this is kind of like a very simplified diagram to showcase what is the new paradigm that we have seen so far. So the right hand side is the parents to students, so the dashed line. So I have a 3-year-old son, which is very naughty. So that's why sometimes I feel like it's very hard for me to teach him something. So that's why there's an unhappy path from the parents to the students. Because in the old days, probably 3 or 4 months ago, when people talking about building the agents, they are talking about using the UI or using the API to build the agents, which is the parents to teach their 3-year-old son. Very painful, very slow process. But all of a sudden, once the new model come out, I think it's Opus 4.6, all of a sudden everything got changed. There's a new route, which is the teacher route. So that means actually me as a builder, I don't, or me as a parents, I don't have to build my son or build my agents using the UI or using the API. Instead, I can give the authorization, I can give the permission to the teacher, which is for code with my specs, with my requirements, and also maybe some of the repeatable skills. And then the teacher can do a much better job for me to teach my son or to build the agent. So that's the new paradigm, or that's the metaphor I can come up with, because this is a much better route today for people, including the builders or the non-builder persona, to build agents. So because of that new paradigm, right now we have seen this new stack uh, changed from the bottom up. The first layer of this stack is the foundation. So that foundation really depends on the companies. So some companies has been investing on this foundation, which is the API, CLI, and the documentation over decades. And maybe some company are just getting started to pay more attention to those primitives. So essentially, that's layer one, the foundation, which refers to API, CLI, and the documentations. So even today, even without using the coding agents, so even we only use the foundation layer one, we could build the agents, but the process is going to be much slower. So that's why the layer two becomes very helpful for builders to really accelerate the building process, because today the builders, they can just use the state of art coding agent such as Flowcodes, Cursor, Codex, whatever the coding agents you prefer to really accelerate building your agent. But then after the layer one, layer two, the third layer is also very important, because because all the SaaS companies, they have their own system records, and the different system records is very different from the internal structure or architecture. So that's why if you just ask Chrome codes to build something on the SaaS platform, then the Chrome codes will take a lot of a detour, a lot of the a lot of errors, because there's no best practice. So that's why there's a lot of SaaS companies, they try to emphasize the native skills, the out-of-box skills, so that the coding agents can consume the skills in order to build agents. So for example, Agentforce, so we launched the out-of-box skills, which captures the best practice in terms of how to consume Salesforce artifacts, how to build the agents on top of the Salesforce. So those are best practice skills or curated skills out of box for AI coding agents to consume. So that's why the coding agents don't have to go through those detour. So that's layer three. And then the final layer on top of everything, the layer four, is the custom skills, which is the last but also very important for enterprise to really adopt agents, because every company, they're using very different tooling, very different workflows. So for example, some companies use Jira to write the user story, or some companies use other tools to capture the user story or requirements. So each company has their own very unique workflows. So that's why, based on what we have seen from the industry, from working with customers, the customers who have their own custom skills or custom repeatable workflows, they have a better chance to adopt the new agent life cycle. So those are the four different layers that we have seen from the customer side. And this slide probably is kind of a very busy slide, but on the high level, the story is kind of a very similar to what AJ mentioned. So we really want to focus on the eval of your agents, because nowadays, by using coding agents, building agents is no longer the bottleneck. So I can give the stack, I can launch the skill, I can just use whatever the coding agent I have to build the agents on day one very quickly, maybe half hour or maybe 1 hour, depends on how complicated your agent is. But then the major challenge or the major bottleneck is, how do you know this is a good agent for your use case? So this is the flywheel that we have seen based on working with our customers. And right now there's a kind of a trendy word called a taste. So people are saying, hey, you need to have a taste to build your agent. But essentially, the taste refers to the ground truth, refers to how you evaluate your agents. So everything starts from find an example. So this find example is a good starting point, because that actually refers to how the subject matter experts define good versus bad. So maybe in the IT ops or the root cause analysis domain. So that refers to, hey, this is a bug versus, hey, this is a feature. So whether this is a false positive or this is a false negative. Or maybe in customer support domain, the good means the agent is able to resolve the customer's question within 4 or 5 turns, versus a bad means the customer is not happy with your agents and then escalates for the human representative. So define good versus bad is probably the starting point for day one. some other examples could be like, hey, I think this repo has a lot of very good artifacts, so I want this repo to be a good example. Or I really like the formatting of this web page, so I want to use this web page as the good example. Or maybe a picture from Pinterest. I like this picture, so I want to use that picture as a good reference. So every good example here, it just becomes your library to define good versus bad. And then the second stage here is the golden data set. So this golden data set could be different formats. Could be a very simple spreadsheet that only have maybe two columns. The first column is what is the input. The second column is what is the output. So in this golden data sets, you probably want to have a mix of a good example versus bad example. Because sometimes you want to teach your agents to follow the good examples, but also you want to teach the agents to say, hey, those are the negative test cases or negative examples. And this golden data set is not a new concept. This is kind of an old concept from the machine learning ops, ML ops. So how many of the audience are familiar with ML ops before? Okay, good. So probably this is not a new concept. And this is very interesting because back in the old days in the ML ops, the eval is a key concept because people want to use the label data sets to build your deep learning model and then use unseen data and also label data to evaluate your deep learning model. So that was the golden or that was the rule before back in the deep learning old days when people train their own models. But this eval concept becomes even more important today because now everyone they are able to build their agents because the entry barrier becomes much lower. So you are actually not building a model; you are just building a agent. So after you have this golden data set, then you are entering this few shots um, uh, phase. So basically, I can give those examples to the agents to do the smoke test. So I can give maybe 5 examples to my agents who is doing the customer support. I can try this out. I just give 5 examples, and then the customer support agents can tell me whether the customer support agents can answer the question regarding the return policy or regarding some other frequent questions that you might ask during the online shopping. So once the few shots pass, or once the smoke test pass, then you want to scale this up. So you want to add more capabilities to these agents. For example, add more tool use to call these agents for other functions or for other use cases. So that's the scale up part. And after the scale up parts, another major primitive here is the evals. So that refers to how many metrics you have. So metrics is kind of a very subjective concept because different teams, different customers have their own eval metrics. So for example, some consumer brands they really care about their branding. So they want their customer support agents to represent their branding, to be very warm, very friendly, customer friendly branding. Or some customers they want their agents, AI agents, to be very concise. So probably don't respond with a lot of contents. Just be very concise, very structured, maybe with some bullet points, with the emoji. So different companies, different customers, they have very different standard to measure how good your agent is. So that's why the eval we try to give customer the out of box eval. So those are standardized eval, including how concise or how faithfulness or how coherent your agent is. So those are table stake out of box evals. But oftentimes customers come up with their own eval. They create their custom eval because they have very specific business needs they want to address. So that's the second bullet points, the eval parts. So essentially, those are the two primitives that that becomes the universal when we talk and work with customers. So customers always come up with a golden data set on day one. And on day one, probably they only have 5 or 10 golden data sets or the test cases. That's okay. They don't have to wait. They don't have to wait. Say, hey, I want to have a 100 or even 200 test cases, and then go to production. So oftentimes we encourage our customers. We tell them that start small. So start with maybe 10 or 20 test cases in your golden data sets. So once your eval pass your golden data sets, 20 test cases, then you're okay to go. You're okay to go to production because you will learn more during your production because the data, the unseen production data probably is more valuable than your offline testing results. So that's why in order to close the loop, this offline online feedback becomes very important because there is going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of new data or unseen data or wild cards that builder or developers they could not imagine before the production. So that's why we always encourage customers to go to production early to gather the production data, so then they can enhance their golden data sets when they have more realistic data points. So essentially, this is a loop that we have seen. We build this loop for our customers, and sometimes customer build this loop by themselves. And then by the end of the day, so they just codify the loop using the skill. So everything is very scalable and repeatable. So they don't have to manually trace the loop. And we have seen more and more customers they agentify this loop. So all the steps are actually monitored by their agent. So the human actually becomes the gatekeeper only for the major changes. For example, there might be some like a failure they saw from the production, and then they go back to maybe change some prompts or maybe change the configuration of their agents or maybe add some knowledge base. So usually those are the three gaps when they try to improve their agents. So after they make those major changes, then they will just push the change to a production. So typically the human becomes the gatekeeper for those major changes, and then for the smaller changes or even for the daily or weekly cadence, they rely on AI agents to run the eval to see if there's any outlier or any way to increase the completeness of your golden data set. Okay, so this is just a very high level concept that we have here for evals. I think this is probably the last slides for myself. So this is more on the industry level, because of the coding agents. I mean me personally and our coworkers who have seen the boundaries between the roles becomes blurry and blurry every day. So I mean typically we have a backend, front ends, data scientists, machine learning engineers, researchers, product managers, etc. But nowadays we have seen the boundary is getting more blurry, which means everyone right now they can call themselves a builder. So if you give a builder a Crocos or any other state of arts coding agent, then the builder should be able to build a solution for customer. So that's why we start realizing that there's a kind of a shift in the industry in terms of how we deliver the value. The old days, the first row here represents the old days. So the old days, me as a software vendor, so I build a tool and I sell the tool to the customer, and then the customer learn how to use the tool in order to solve their problem. So that was the old days when we build the SaaS tools. But nowadays, the customer are not satisfied with the tool itself. The customer want to see the outcome. They want to see the value. They want to say what kind of the problem you have addressed for me. So that's why there's a new way this is a more AI native vendors. So actually, they sell service. They don't sell tools. They sell service, and the customer buy the outcome. And the vendors they learn how to use AI the best way they can in order to sell the service or sell the outcome. And why this shift? Because we've seen a huge gap between the capability of the model and then the actual adoption at the enterprise side. So today, everyone's talking about how good or the state of art model is. Opus or other models are super powerful, but if you go to the enterprise size, you might feel very impressed about the adoption level for the enterprise to really adopt the models because a couple reasons. Number one, the enterprise they have a lot of regulation or compliance or a lot of concerns restrictions they have to overcome. So that's why their pace to adoption for the AI adoption is much slower compared to the vendors. And number two is the change management because the enterprise they have a lot of they have a huge workforce uh, who really have to learn how to ramp up on the AI models. So that's why, because of those two reasons, there's a huge gap between the AI model adoption versus the AI model capability. And so that's why we're seeing more and more domain a demand from customer telling us that, hey, we don't want to buy a new tool. We want you to give us a solution. And even better, they want to outsource the AI adoption. They want to outsource the AI adoption to FDEs. So forward deployed engineer. How many of you heard about the FDEs? Yes. So that's why this FDE, if you search the job increase of FDE, it's probably 3 or 4x compared to other jobs categories. Because nowadays the big companies, basically everyone. So the big tech companies, hyperscalers, Google, Microsoft, software companies, Salesforce, or even the AI labs, OpenAI, Anthropic, everyone's hiring FDEs. Why? Because of that huge gap between how efficient customer can use AI tools versus how good the AI tools are today. So just want to share some of the observations that we have seen from the industry as well. Okay, so I think that's what I have today. Any questions? You say for Salesforce are maybe one or two of the best outcomes that you provide from you? Yeah, that's a great question. So the customers depends on their use case. For example, if their use case is a customer support agents, then the outcome they are looking at is how to lower escalation from the end user. So which means if the end user can use the AI agents to get their question answered, then there's no escalation to the human representative. So escalation is one outcome they are looking at. Can I buy that today as a customer? So yeah, so we have this kind of a FDE solution. So actually, you're gonna buy the solution, you're gonna buy the outcome. So we have some of the outcome program for the customers. Yeah, we try to tailor different programs for the customers because different customer, some customers they really want to buy the outcome, but some customers they still have the mindset in terms of the seats. So how many seats or how many tools they want to buy. So yeah, we try to tailor for different customers.
That AI vendor is buying, like customers are buying outcome and the vendor is earning more at the end. So who's paying? The customer is no longer paying the tokens and the cost, right? They are only paying the route.
Yeah, so it depends. So if a customer just purely buy the outcome, the customer that means they outsource everything to the vendor. So that vendor could be OpenAI or could be Salesforce or could be any vendors. So that vendor they will just use the whatever tools to deliver the outcome, and then that vendor will consider token as their cost of sold.
What if the customer has a preference, like they don't want to go to that model, which they want to limit the data exposure of their company? How does the outcome shift in the way of costing? How does the vendor earn more?
Yeah. So the last one refers to for customer pays less because customer don't have to train their internal workforce. They only pay for outcome. They don't have to pay for tokens. So that's one part. And then for vendors learn more because the outcome actually is more valuable for the vendors, and the vendors will keep selling the outcome to different customers, and those outcome could be scalable because there are a lot of similarity between the outcomes. So it's kind of similar to the consulting model, but the old school the consulting is a very human it's very human intensive. You have to spend a lot of hours to produce the outcome. But nowadays, if I give you a kind of a for cost max, you can deliver a lot of outcome for that $200 per month.
So the customized outcomes and subscription, they subscribe to certain service.
So, uh, here,
Yeah.
let's say, I'm Starbucks and I'm a big user of Salesforce. Uh, we have specific use cases, and can we build AI agents on Salesforce? Does Salesforce give tools to build AI agents on Salesforce?
Yes. So that's why we try to help the customers to build their own stack, the new stack, because the agents will only be good if you have your data layer stable and mature. So that's why Salesforce we try to bundle the data cloud with the agent force. So we not only sell you the agents, but also sell you the data layer to make sure that the data has all the complete uh, the completeness part. So for example, Starbucks. So Starbucks probably has a lot of CRM data. So probably all those CRM data will be the backbone, the foundation for for the agents to make the right decision. So without that data, the agents is very hard to make the right decision.
Got it. So,
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now we try to be kind of a data layer agnostic, which means doesn't really matter you come from the data like maybe Databricks or Snowflakes. Doesn't really matter your data layer is. So we have like a zero copy mechanism to integrate with your data vendor. So essentially, it's kind of a data agnostic. And then on top of the data layer, we provide you the kind of a AI native solution for the agent, and that agent is primarily for customer support and also the internal employee agent use case. So those are the two major use cases that we try to focus on. Uh, yeah. So basically, the ground truth is still the data cloud layers. For example, the data, if Databricks is the vendor, so they are the ground truth. So we just add an integration on top. So we don't own your data. So basically, we just transfer your data. So if there's any mismatch for a data, then probably that mismatch comes from the foundation of your infrastructure. So your question is more about how to correct your golden data. Yeah. Yeah. So there are a couple layers for this. One is so if there's some existing ground truth that has a labeled. So for example, some examples that already has the goods versus the bad. So those are the ground truth. Then we can use that. If not, then we have to rely on the subject matter experts from the enterprise company. So maybe the use case is customer support. Then we'll work with the enterprise, and they will help us to label the good versus bad. So then we can understand this is a right response from the agents versus this is a bad response. Because from our sides we don't really have that domain, so we have to rely on the enterprise, the subject matter experts to label the data.
I have a question. Hi. Nice presentation, by the way. Thank you for taking the time and take the session here. As I understand, the data still resides in the client's infrastructure, right? Because of various compliance issues and stuff, right? That's right. And for an agent to be really fast, you need to have data locally available in terms of architectural principles. I'm talking that you want to avoid latency and have local context available very closer to your compute where your agent is doing all of that, right? So, how are you actually taking the data from customers' storage to your agent, closer to your agents, closer to your computes, and still you're saying you are also not saving the data? There's a it's kind of contradicting. Like you want the storage with the clients, but you also want in architectural principle you want data closer to your compute. Your agents are running in some sort of a compute, right? So do you manage those infrastructure, or your whole setup is running on customers? Suppose somebody running in AWS,
Yeah,
you're running in their account, kind of.
yeah. Basically, we leverage the infrastructure like a S3. So S3 bucket has all the raw data. So we don't own those data. So basically, the we just leverage the data sets to do the evaluation. So customers and AWS they have the full control of the data.
I understand. Thank you. Do you also like give a feedback loop, like as your agents evolve, right? Like for your agents to be fast, your data should be in a way that is easily consumable by the agents, like more on terms of standardization of the data, right? Which is reducing a lot of token cost and making it simple. Do you also like take care of that for the customer, or how does it
Yeah.
work?
So there are some the currency we have some latency for how the data gets stored in those data clouds and then use those data for our evaluation purpose. But right now we don't really have a strong demands to use the like a streaming data, low latency data to do the evaluation. So sometimes we have data for a couple days and then just do a batch evaluation. And because the goal for us is just to gather the data in a batch and then run the evaluation and then make the changes based on that batch rather than just one or two data points. So that's why the latency or how fresh the data is important, but not like a critical for us.
Okay, we'll take one
Yes.
last question here, and more questions.
Like you mentioned, one was the service agent and another one employee agent.
Yeah.
Right? So what are some examples of on Salesforce side where the outcome examples? And secondly, FDs are free, professional services paid. So how does all that work in others?
Yeah, I'll probably answer the second question. Yes, FD depends because sometimes if it is a very like a strategic enterprise, then yeah, FD sometimes is like a free developer for that enterprise because sometimes enterprise they internally they don't really have that workforce to deploy or adopt AI. So is that sustainable? I don't know. I don't think that's sustainable. But does that solve the problem? I think yes, that solved the problem for customer to adopt AI on day one. So that's why I feel like FD is kind of probably the best short-term solution for now. Probably will last for maybe 2 years, 2 more years. And then after that, once the enterprise have more capability to catch up, then probably enterprise can really pick up the AI adoption rather than outsource this to FDs. And then back to your first question. So yes, service agent versus the employee agent. Those are two major use cases for employee agents. So there's a lot of metrics. For example, uh, how fast that employee agents can help the employee to get onboarded. Like maybe get onboarded in 2 days or 3 days. So those are kind of metrics to measure the time saving. And then for the service agents, it really depends on how customers they define their customer service. They want to they want to make sure the escalation is low, or they want to make sure that the deflection. So deflection is another concept from the call center, the contact center industry. They want to make sure the deflection is low. So those are very specific metrics, different enterprise they care about.
Thank you so much, Ran. We'll take more questions towards the end, please. Looks like you all have such interesting questions, but thank you. Let's save it out for another speaker and then we'll address all of your questions. Thank you so much. Okay, next is the speaker that was originally allotted couldn't make it today. So we have one of our own members, Fanindra Ganji, to talk, to present his topic. He'll do the introduction and over to you, Fanny.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chitra. Yeah, thanks for joining us today once again, everyone. So, actually, this is my first presentation to big audience, so I'm kind of nervous, but just bear with me if I'm stuck at any points. Just give me a sec. Yeah. So, once again, I'm Fanindra Ganji, an AI/ML engineer. Am I audible to the people at the back? Thank you. So, in today's session, we are not discussing about any new trending technology or the product that I've built. As I already know, you have been attending this tech events all along, but today let's step back a bit and think about how people are adapting to AI right now. Are you interested in the topic? Thank you. So, along with that, just give me a second. Oh, finally. Perfect. So, yeah, today's topic is once again, so how people are adapting to AI right now, and whether AI is helping us to build easier, or is it making the engineering harder. So, right now, as we know, building with AI is dramatically exceeded the speed of mankind. So, when let's say if you just give a line of prompt, it will be able to generate the entire feature or maybe an entire application in some cases. So here the main question that I was thinking is about, not about the AI and how is it implementing, but to understand whether we are actually understanding, review, or and owning the implementation that AI gave us. Right? Do you agree with me? So that's the main point today. So the main idea is the AI, if we are actually compressing the implementation of the process of writing the code or whatever it is, or we are actually compressing the thinking process around the implementation itself. So starting with that, uh, uh, there are different people in the industry right now who are early career engineers and experienced professionals. So the AI shift is affecting different people in different points, right? So let's start with early career engineers. They have one big question almost all the time: what should I learn to stay relevant? They are going with AI, RAGs, agents, MCPs, vector databases, and the list never ends. And in next 2 to 3 months, we come up with new framework or new concept. They need to learn back again. And when it comes to the experienced professionals, experienced engineers, it's not about writing the code faster anymore. They are actually focusing on how do they use AI to scale the existing system that they have built in terms of review, architecture, reliability, cost, and security, right? And when it comes to companies, it's a different topic all along. So I've constantly seeing the job descriptions right now with technology, the tech terms that are just invented few months ago with 5 years of experience. That's the requirement right now. We don't even understand the how those things are working, but that's a topic for another day. So today let's discuss about the early engineers and experienced engineers. So coming to early engineers, so so when people are looking at the job descriptions, they are seeing Python, RAG, LangGraph, LangChain, and so on. The early engineers are actually trying to learn each and every tool. They are going through tutorials and building some basic demo projects and adding into the resume to hype up the resume for ATS purpose. But it's not the problem is not about the curiosity to learn new things, but the problem arises when they are not understanding what's underneath these technologies. So when you are diving deeper, let's say with a small example, when the person is building a RAG agent, that's good. That sounds cool, right? The trending RAG and agents. But are they actually understanding what happens when the vector database goes down? They need to understand how does it actually work. Before that, actually, how many of you are early engineers here with like 0 to 2 years of experience? Okay, that's cool. Yeah. And how many of you are experienced engineers, like 5 to 10 and plus experience? Almost, yeah, that's great. So for early engineers, so you already know, right? You need to understand what's the depth of these technologies, and you need to let's say if you have built a multi-agent architecture, that sounds cool in the resume and to anyone that you explain it to. But whether you are able to answer the question, why is it actually necessary to build a multi-agent architecture in your problem? That's the main question. And along with that, we have number of other things like latencies, throughput, costs, and there are a lot more things you need to understand. So I suggest you to don't fall into the shallow repetition cycle of learning new technologies, but to understand the depth in it, what's it actually solving right now. And the main thing is knowing the vocabulary of the system is not the same as knowing the system itself. And then arises the quick question: what should we actually do to add value to us as a person apart from AI? Then comes the thing called ownership, taking the ownership of the system itself. So I don't as AI is writing up the code, I don't suggest you to ignore the code part completely. You should definitely understand the code, and you should actually know how things are working out. But apart from that, you need to also understand how the code is working internally. Let's say, for example, if you ask the agent, maybe Claude Codex, to build a authentication flow, it will generate the entire project in like say 10 to 20 minutes with 800 lines of code. Right now, uh, your value is not with producing the code that AI gave you. Your value actually adds on when you actually understand the code in depth. Like you should understand why it actually chose that particular authentication flow, and you should question yourself where these credentials are actually stored, and you need to verify whether the what happens when the tokens expire, and if at all the identity provider fails, you should be able to debug it. And when it comes to security, you need to understand what are the causes that can be used to abuse the system that you have built. And also, coming to the operations, you need to understand how the logs work. Most of us, if at all, the vibe coders particularly, if you are building something, if it's everything is working fine, you completely ignore how the logs are and what the logs are, right? So do you agree with me? Yeah. So logging plays a key role because in particularly in AI case, the AI always fails silently. You need to go through and record each and everything and understand where the things are deviating. So you need to take the ownership of the entire thing. So this entire cycle is the thing called ownership, and you need to have complete idea on it. That's actually adds the value to your profile and as a person yourself. That's the experience that you need to gain right now. That's the mind shift change from writing the code yourself. Taking the ownership is the mind shift change you need to get right now. So coming up next, uh, this AI right now are actually, that's not only picking up the speed in implementation, but also reduce the friction. So the friction of actually the thinking that we do does, and I mean, I need this to the implementation of 1,000 lines of code. Back then, in historical stages before an AI era, we use it to, when we actually have an idea, we used to think about architecture, edge cases, failure modes, dependencies, securities, and operational costs, right? And then we start implementing on the code, and maybe we'll be dealing with all these cases while implementing the code. This way you actually understand all the technicalities that are involved while building a project, along with the project itself as a code, because you are writing the code and you will be able to review it and debug it if anything is breaking, right? So right now in the AI era, once again, if you have uh, just a small idea, you don't hesitate to build it with Claude Code or Codex. Do you agree with me? How many of you build something random out of the blue frequently? There are a lot of builders right now. So that's the thing. So it reduced a lot of friction of actually implementing the code by itself. And along with that, it also reduced the friction of thinking that we does. So that shouldn't be the case at the moment. So let's say if at all you just gave a line of prompt and it gave you the entire application, you don't know what's the architecture, edge cases, fail-safe modes, dependencies, and what are all inside those 1,000 lines of code, and you won't be able to go through all those 1,000 lines of code as well, right? You agree with me? We never checks each and every line of code that AI writes. So that's a major issue. So we as a person adds value to our judgment, to our thinking process, to understand how effectively we are thinking. So, that actually improves our value right now. So the thing is, AI should actually compress the implementation process of writing the code, but not the thinking of the process around it. And then comes the bottlenecks. So along with the speed of code it is generating every day, there are a new different types of bottlenecks that are coming up. So back then, once again, before AI era, uh, we developers used to write code ourselves. We used to think of the algorithms, write code, and yeah, we don't have ChatGPT, but we used to have Stack Overflow. How many of you know Stack Overflow? Use Stack Overflow before? That's great. And one fun fact, actually, Stack Overflow almost died. Do you know that? It's almost died in last 2 to 3 years from the AI era, since ChatGPT introduced. It drastically decreased its usability rate, and I don't know if it's still alive. I last time I checked, it was almost dead. So coming back to the topic, we as developers back then we used to grab the code from Stack Overflow and basically implement it based on our requirement. And as we integrated the code ourselves, we have the idea of what things are working and how the things are working. We used to review the code easily. But coming back to AI once again, as we know, few lines of prompt can generate 28 files and 3,200 lines of code. Uh, but the main thing is eventually the human should review it, because if you need to understand whether it's actually fitting into the existing system or not. If you are building something completely for the first time, that works. But if you are trying to attach something that your to the system that you already own, that plays a key role. So here, along with the execution, you should actually think once again, if you are actually able to review the architecture, security, integration, and failure modes as fast as AI. That's the complex part, and it's technically not possible to match up the speed with AI. It's like competing with a race car, right? So once again, coming to the reviews. So eventually, AI should be able to use for the review part. I don't disagree on that, but eventually, you need to take the ownership and judgment on how the things are working out, and eventually, you are accountable to push these things, the changes or the features that it built to production. And this is where the experienced engineers actually comes into place. As uh, the experience we generally call this experience is not just on number of years or the lines of code that they write, but the main point of experience is actually the consequences that they have seen and resolved, right? Do you agree with me? Over the years of time, how many different consequences that you have gone through and you are able to solve it, those actually adds a value to the experience. So just like that, we the experienced person can see the cache everyone forgot to invalidate, and migration that worked in staging and died in production, and the service that couldn't handle retries on higher loads and stuff. So coming back, these AI engineers right now, they are, as they have the idea of how the systems are working out, their their judgment matters more. So what things AI can actually add value to their experience is thinking from how I can make things faster to how can I make my engineering system better. So here we delegated into multiple stages like delegation, standardization, verification. So delegation is in what part of the work should AI deal with and what part of the work should a person, a human deal with. You need to delegate it accordingly. And the standardization is the flow of implementation, the AI workflows as we regularly use. If we need to reinvent the workflows according to the each member in the team, or else we need to standardize the entire workflow for the entire team to uh, come up with better outcomes. And then the verification part. When the code is generated by AI, you need to verify if it's actually worth it, and if you are seeing any uh, changes that couldn't fit into the system that you already own. Once these three things work together well, then you can understand the clear picture of how the things are working out, the observability. You can understand everything like phasing model calls, understanding the cost, and also diagnosing the failures as well. And along with that comes the governance. What can AI actually access? So AI is a superpower right now. So the things that it can access uh, can also have the ability to break it. So you need to understand what are the things that you are actually giving the access to AI, and eventually, if the human in the loop should be there to approve for the processes. So the major thing here is the takeaway from this point is the experienced engineer should try to integrate AI with human behavior and use it for better outcomes. And that said, coming to the new technologies, as we know, we are coming up with new technologies, concepts, or tools every few months. So, how are we actually implementing that into our systems? So, the first question you should understand or raise yourself is it's not how it's let's say yeah it's not how I can implement this in our system, but it should be like how it can actually make my system better. I think I got it right. So yeah, you need to think how the particular technology that is out there can actually make our system better instead of trying to force and implement it into your system. Uh, Along with that, let's say a small example. We are actually building a fly corporate agent system, but uh, when you are actually understanding the flow internally, how the things are working out, if it's just a data fetch and an API call and an update in the database, why are we actually integrating the AI at all here? It's a deterministic flow completely, and it will be able to solve it within a 50 milliseconds time frame. So you don't actually need AI at this stage. That's the way you need to understand whether or not you are implementing the AI at the right stage or not. And eventually, when you are implementing a new thing into the system, you need to think about the reliability, latency, throughput, cost, security, observability, and maintenance. So those are the core points that always be there, but you need to think on it. So yeah, eventually. So when it comes to a common principle that I can say, so the entire presentation and the topic that I thought of is based on my observations, my experience, and the based on the people I talk to every day with tech professionals and the students. So eventually, what I thought of as a principle for both early engineers and experienced engineers is never let the implementation move faster than your ability to understand and own it. Do you agree with me? Yeah. Thank you. So, thank you so much. And for early engineers, the major point that they need to focus on is to build the judgment AI cannot give you automatically. You need to focus on taking the ownership, focus on debugging architecture systems, failures, and production operations. That actually gains the experience that you need right now. And coming to experienced engineers, as they already have this experience, they need to think of the process that lets AI scale safely and focusing on changing the systems integrating with AI. And that said, I have few questions for you. So, what are you actually seeing right now? Has the AI improved engineering quality on your team, or mostly engineering speed, or what skills becoming more valuable as code generation gets cheaper? And what should we never fully delegate AI right now? I want answers from you right now. Yep.
Your favorite one examples. It, to me, it's really contextual. So I've seen it can certainly improve engineering quality and engineering speed, but it depends on what you're asking it to do. So, of course, token size, what you're getting AI to ingest. If you're throwing too much data at it, too much code on the wrong kind of data, you're going to get crap back. It's kind of the saying that, in my part of the industry, you put crap in, you get crap.
Yeah,
So
sure,
you
sure.
have to be extremely contextual, provide the right context. That's really all that it is. So it can, if we're careful, it can do the exact opposite.
Yeah, perfect. That makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And any others? Yeah, sure.
So for the second one, what will become more valuable? Uh, so, as most people know it, and also most kids nowadays are focusing on is creativity and also the people skills. So AI doesn't have people skills, but as human beings, we the people who have great people skills and understand human psychology. At the end of the day, humans are the for going to consume those applications. So, who understand how humans behave, and humans are very complex beings, what they like or what they dislike. Uh, and if you use AI to cater your product to appease the humans, then you will be more successful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. So thinking, review the thinking part to yeah.
Yeah.
Coding.
Yeah, true. So I would add a point on that. We can brainstorm with it. It's like a fellow member who have a lot of knowledge. So when you have an initial idea, you can elaborate it as much as possible, and then it can add more points from its end, and it can also be the critic to enhance our idea. So we can actually use it as a co-worker to enhance our ideas, and then work on the implementation part.
Yeah, we need to give context.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Exchange of thoughts, need to have context, where we are coming from, what we are asking.
yeah, exactly. True. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Question two, I think we need people to be aware of the big pictures more, and they need to be more architectural, even though however they are in their career, they have to see they are solving a little bigger chunk of problems than the narrow.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
So I think the domain knowledge will become more valuable as we go forward with more and more with AI in the industry.
Yeah, true.
Domain knowledge will
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sure.
feel we should not only delegate to AI. I think it would be like when it comes to how this when it comes to generating ideas on what to do. I think that's one that's pretty important because humans are more creative than AI. But possibly should be good if we have fun with it.
Yeah.
That's what I think. And also for number two, I think what will become more valuable as it's easier to I think generate the code is to kind of come up with ideas kind of create like a design for the project. People could build like architecture because sometimes when I use Claude, I see that it doesn't follow like this strict architecture on the piece of the that's one pretty valuable.
Yeah, true. Thank you. Thanks for that. And anyone? Yeah,
Okay.
that's it from.
Let's
Thank
have
you.
a
Thank you so much.
big round of applause for Phanindra.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to invite Ran and Ajay onto the stage. So that any other questions from the audience, please feel free to shoot them out. Can you get this right?
There. Thank you guys all for speaking tonight. That was really great. There have been a lot of studies and examples recently where AI agents, because they're optimized to solve a problem, to find a solution to their problem, will sometimes do things that are more, seemingly deceptive or lying, if they can lie. Shortcuts and cheats. Have you guys seen that at all in your work? And have you thought about how to deal with that kind of situation?
Absolutely, yes. As we were designing the system, one of the grading rubric or dimension was actually to avoid any additional creativity or hallucination. So in my domain, at least, we deal with metric signals, etc. So the hallucination could be like a metric doesn't exist or a tag doesn't exist, and the LLM is making it up and saying that, hey, your CPU was not really spiking, etc. Right? So that's something we noticed a bit early on, and then we had to kind of put some more guardrails around it and strict metadata binding around it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Does it ever happen that, like from the architecture that you shared about one called debugger or AI agent, does it ever happen that the agents or the tools they are in a deadlock situation where they keep calling each other, but um, because they have because the agents make decisions on their own which tool to call, do you tackle such a situation?
Um,
Oh.
Usually, you put a limit on how many turns it would take, or what is the depth of the call. Most of the harnesses and framework support that now, so you can interrupt if it's going too deep, or just chit chatting with two different systems.
A question for each of you as an engineering manager and a product management director. How are you, with increasing use of AI, how are you changing the roles and responsibilities on your teams? How are you changing staffing? Right, you hear a lot, you see a lot of right reduction in staffing. You hear people saying now we need less engineers, right? Now we need less product managers. Sometimes I hear the opposite, right? Now we need even more product managers than we did before to stay on top of all the things that we can do. So, could you each share your perspectives on how you're managing your teams of engineers and product managers in terms of changing responsibilities, maybe changing in staffing levels, same, more, less?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to be take a step here. So, based on my observation, at least for my work, we try to be lean, which is not growing. So, because we believe that by using the latest AI tools, everyone can be maybe 3x, 5x, or even 10x. So, I think that's how productive we can get by using those latest tools. Because of that, we have seen a trend that each individual can right now own the workflow end to end. So that person can start with the problem and then start with the solution end to end without too much dependency on the others. So that kind of focus right now to actually work as a single person. And sometimes even the UX designer, that person can actually cover some of the front end work as well. And the product managers not only just writes the PRD, but also can build the prototype. So we're going to see a lot of crossover like this because the role, the boundary of the role is kind of less and less important, or tighter because less important. People just try to build the solution faster based on those tools. Yeah, so that's how I see it. And also from the organization level, hierarchy becomes flatter. For example, one people manager is probably that person can have maybe 10 or even 12 self control in terms of the direct reports compared to previously maybe one manager only managed 3 or 4 people. So those are two kinds of say. So horizontally, people can travel from office and to and then vertically, the hierarchy is kind of becomes flat, right?
Yeah, 100% agree. I would just add to that when we are hiring engineers now, a typical interview loop is that you would have data structures and algorithm rounds, and maybe two of them in a system design. Um, at least in our org, we are trying to replace one of the data structures and algorithm round with AI fluency round, because writing code is not so critical, but as other people were talking about as well, how you comprehend the code that got generated is equally important. So if you're given let's say, a problem to solve in data structures and algorithm, we give the freedom to use whatever AI tool you want to use. but then explain what it actually produced, and there's a rubric around that. So it's kind of a new way of interviewing is what's happening as well.
Thank you.
Like you mentioned about the root cause analysis, we just want to know like what kind of models are you finding are becoming more effective for the causal analysis?
We use model routing, so tokens are expensive as well. So mostly we use Sonnet, Opus, Claude models, and OpenAI models as well. But we are trying to see if we can use open weight models also for some tasks that doesn't require a very sophisticated model. But as I was trying to explain, right, like it's LLM reasoning is important, but at least in root cause analysis, it's just one part of the equation. The other part is your context graph and how you reason about the system that you're trying to um, cause.
Okay, you mentioned about the anomaly detection and some time series analysis.
Mhm.
Have you also looked at something like the the iterative random forest for root cause analysis?
Not the random forest, but we've looked into PageRank and different correlation engines. Um, Random forest, we didn't. Took a more simpler route of boosted decision tree. So like you navigate through the tree, and depending on what weight you put on a certain signal, you can boost it up. Um, but yeah, we haven't used the random forest.
Right. Thanks.
Any questions?
As the gentleman said here, that our LLMs actually are designed to be optimized, produce quality, right? And as a developer, I always have this worry and challenges that how outdated or updated my skills, right? And I'm just curious, as Boris, one of the cloud architect, actually Claude, let's say, hey, just remove your skills. And it turns out actually it produce more and good quality, right? So it seems skills is a fundamental layer in your architecture. So how do you guys manage this and maintain this? Just curious.
Yeah, in our case, like I think somebody asked a question about the memory system. So basically, we have an offline system which updates the skills at some frequency because those change.
It's a bunch of instructions. It's custom skills. Basically, it's a group instructions. Some skills are also built in packages for other plugins. Just curious about how that changes.
So the skills that we actively manage is kind of runbooks, if you will. Like, we treat runbooks as skills, and it would have some diagnostic steps and then some remediation steps. Um, so depending on the investigation that happened and what we learned from it, if we feel that there was certain things that didn't make sense, we keep that in memory, and then we haven't implemented that yet. We just have the memory, but the idea is that we would go back and run an offline job to use that memory as well. But right now, it's more like an offline process where we use subject matter experts to kind of continue to refine it. Yeah, at least that's what we are doing.
And lastly, for that, not familiar with the agent force and those stuff like external agent develop like C2A.
Yeah, I think that's a trend of our seeing on customers. As customers, they have a lot of different SaaS agents for different vendors. They have agents for Microsoft, for Google, for ServiceNow, and for Salesforce. So essentially, customers want to have a better way to orchestrate different agents from different places. So that's why we want to make sure A2A, like this case, is valid. So within Agent Force, we have the orchestration layer. So basically, the Agent Force is the orchestrator, and then under Agent Force, agents can be can be caught using this orchestration. Yeah.
So in Salesforce, how many agents are available now? 1,000, 1,500, let's have Salesforce customer. Normal use cases with the common for every industry.
Yeah, I think that really depends on the progress of the customer. So some enterprise they are pretty early on the journey. So that means probably they have already launched maybe a lot of maybe 10 or 20 agents in production. So for me, it's more like a funnel. So a lot of agents are still in the sandbox. Customers are still develop those agents, and then there are some agents graduated from that funnel. Then they push the agents into production. And some customers are still in the early stage, so that's why they have more agents in the sandbox compared to agents in the production. From our perspective, we always try to encourage customers to push the agent into production early than later, because that's the only way to gather the production data to improve your agent. Because it's very hard. It's very hard to say, hey, your agent is 100% perfect in the sandbox, unless you put agent in the production and you see some real data.
And how are customers adaptable to the outcome-based pricing? Because now the pricing structure is changing, right?
Yeah, the pricing, yeah, there are a lot of different dimensions for those pricing. So for the very old school, it's based on the seat, and now people are talking about like cumulative terms. So each term is maybe 2 cents, and now people are talking about whether these agents can help your customer to resolve this customer support question, maybe answer the question about return policy. So if I close this ticket, then that's like $2 value compared to a human representative to take a phone call, and probably that's a $4 or $5. So those are different dimensions when you measure the value of your agent.
So you mentioned 18 different agents or something like that just now, but earlier you were saying like there's two agents, like employee and how do you?
So there are two categories: the service agent and then the employee agents. But in terms of a number, it's not the human agents this employee have. So some customers might have a 10 or 20 or 1,000 agents in production, compared to some customers might have might only have a maybe 2 or 3 agents in production. Those are two major categories: the service agent versus the employee agent.
Okay, so in this category there's different agents. So how is that different than the skills? Like because there's also skills that people build on top of the generic agent, right?
So the skills, so customer they use the skills to deploy the agents. So that means the end user, for example, if I'm the end user, I make a phone call or I chat with the AI bots, I don't see those skills. So people are just using the skills to develop agents and then evaluate agents.
Okay, so like I know you guys also have Slackbot, right? How does that fit into all this?
Yeah, Slackbot is mainly for the internal employee use case. So Slackbot is kind of a more powerful than the external service agent, because Slackbot enables users to manage your skills. So Slackbot is just like a fully managed coding agent compared to Cloud Code. It's mainly for like a single developer use case. And so yeah, we have seen a lot of adoption for Slackbots, because Slackbot basically is fully managed agent. So I don't have to install Cloud Codes locally, or I don't need an IDE. I can just use Cloud Codes as my coding agents. And there's a lot of use cases to use Slackbots. So Slackbots can connect with different MCP, the Google Doc, or any other SaaS endpoints. So for example, I can use a Slackbot to summarize my threads and put everything in a Google Doc. or prepare presentation. So those use cases are very useful for employee.
Got it. So Slackbot is different than the employee agent, you're saying. Two different things. They don't compete with each other.
Same buckets.
Same but different competing agents. They both compete. So employee agent and Slackbot.
So main sales is one stream of the employee agents. Because there are some other employee agents, for example, kind of like a very niche employee agents for onboarding for new hire. So some customers use the onboarding agents to help their new hire to get familiar with the internal process. There's a different internal employee agents. But Slackbot, I think, is probably the most careful employee agents.
Thanks.
Earlier, you mentioned how AI is streamlining the workforce, how it has affected your organization, and I mean, you also mentioned that like nowadays listeners are also like interested in becoming builders. Um, so there are like a lot of people who are right now looking for jobs, entering the job market. People who have just completed their graduation, looking for a new job. What could be some skill sets that they have to differentiate themselves when they, let's say, they're applying for companies like yours? Something that they can, yeah, that's essentially the question.
Yeah, I can share my thoughts. I kind of experience because I feel like at least from my observation, maybe the best entry point is FTE. Okay? Because FTE is the category that people are still hiring a lot. So all the companies from OpenAI to make all the way to Salesforce or SaaS companies, because there's a huge demand for enterprise for them to adopt AI. And right now, probably FTE is the only or be one of the few cost-effective way for enterprise to adopt AI. So that's the demand. Is what I've seen so far.
Do you have a different opinion? No,
No, definitely in terms of the growth. Um, so we are not a platform company. So for us, it doesn't make sense to hire FDEs. Um, but for platform companies like Salesforce, Microsoft, and all the other platform players, it totally makes sense. In our case, we definitely value AI fluency, which is kind of critical. Like even in freshers now, as we said, we are kind of replacing one of the interview round with just AI fluency round and a rubric around it. So knowledge of these tools is pretty essential. And what works, what doesn't work, having a critical thinking around, okay, I'm going to use this particular tool in this occasion. And I think the third talk laid out some of the things like, tech and comprehension skills, right? Like, for example, you're given a code and are you able to reason about it? What's your critical thinking around that code? That's a very important skill nowadays. At least that's what we look for in new hires as well.
So the FDEs, do you look for senior people with lots of experience, or can you actually hire new graduates to be able to do that? Usually, people need to know what they're trying to have over there, right? So, well, yeah, I think the spectrum of FDE skill set is pretty broad. So, could be very experienced, very well in terms of technical, so the customer management. Also, I've seen a lot of entry level FDEs for new grads because FDE is the key skill set for FDE is to really understand what customers needs and why. So what customer wants and why they want it. Once you understand those two parts, then the building part actually is not that difficult because let's say you're just work with the customer very closely, and familiar with their system, and also sometimes they use their own computer, use their own code base. So yeah, I think it's more about soft skills rather than hard skills.
So to piggyback on what you were saying, so maybe the advice be put FDE related skills and experience or demonstrate that you understand FDE in your resume, but why? I mean, for ATS purposes, I mean, is that, I'm trying to understand how to apply what you're saying. Say that's good advice or you know, a different direction?
Yeah, so if there's any, for example, any related experience about how you manage customer expectation, how you understand the requirements, how you break down the requirements, and showcase how you have the hands-on experience to deliver a solution to the customer and understand this is the solution, the customer solution. So basically, the actual experience for understanding the requirements all the way to make sure that you make the customer happy. So if you can demonstrate the actual uh, experience, the influence of handholding for the customer, then I think that's super valuable. Yeah. From a hiring manager perspective, right? If you can have a new graduate who can do all the stuff that you're expecting them to do, an experienced guy to be able to do the same thing, you obviously will go for a new graduate, right? It's cheaper.
Yes, that depends on the company.
Most companies, any company would spend more.
A lot of companies are spending more on new hires. They have higher salaries than the experienced guys.
If there's no questions left, we'll leave you all to discuss outside the room. You're all free to chat, even with the speakers as well. But thank you so much for being here. Before you guys step out, please, one small ask for whoever's left in the room. Can you please fill the feedback form with however it has helped you today? That's a great review that we can take from you. And we'll see you all again on September 10th in this room again. So have a great evening and see you all in the next events. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.